Mr. Speaker, and I'll be splitting my time with the member for Rivière-des-Mille-Îles, and I'm speaking today, of course, on this bill C-44, terrorism bill. Before I get into the more technical aspects of a speech that I have here, I want to talk a little bit about the threat of terrorism in Canada. You know, I've heard my colleagues across the way describe the events of last fall as being one of the most egregious acts that we've seen in Canada in terrorism, but I don't think they actually deserve that title. The most egregious act of terrorism that occurred in Canada, of course, was Air India. 1986, I believe that was the date of that. Very, very tragic occurrence where CSIS, in place at the time, was tracking the terrorists. And we found out many, many years later because, of course, we didn't have very good oversight over CSIS and its operations at the time. And Parliament wasn't able to actually get to the bottom of it for many, many years, and required quite an extensive action on the part of government to do that. So what we see in 1986 was a very, very large act of terrorism, hundreds of people killed. That is, to my mind, the primary event of terrorism in Canada over the time that I've been in existence here. We've seen other acts of terrorism. We've seen terrorism in the Alberta gas fields where people have blown up gas wells on numerous occasions. We've seen acts of terrorism on the West Coast against hydroelectric facilities. So terrorism has shown up in Canada quite often over the course of our lifetimes. We haven't, only today do we see that we see this kind of knee-jerk reaction to two incidents of that really we have very much difficulty in understanding as pure terrorism, because of course the individuals involved with them had mental issues, they had social issues, they may well have been influenced by ideology from one ethnic group or the other, but they weren't driven by that, they weren't coerced by that, they acted on their own. They acted on their own and in some ways acted haphazardly and without, in a way that suggested that this was simply an emotional outburst. And that, to me, is not the same type of thing as the carefully planned and executed destruction of an airliner killing hundreds of people. That is truly what I think we can make a definition of the, if not of terrorism, but of the relative degree of importance of the acts that take place. And it's unfortunate, of course, that in that atmosphere that we see in the last few months, that we're now going to make decisions about the way we run Canada that we didn't choose to make in 1986, that we didn't choose to make at other times when we were faced with acts that were we could justifiably call terrorism. So why are we doing it now? Why are we taking these actions now? What is the larger threat that we see and that we perceive that is going to curtail more human rights and basic freedoms that we have in Canada, those that we've worked very hard to maintain? So what are we doing? Well, with this latest bill, what we're doing is increasing the powers of Canada Spy Agency. We're offering it up as another international body to engage in espionage and spying on other countries. So we've created a situation with the law, and Section 8 calls for the enable the service to investigate within or outside Canada threat to the security of Canada or perform its duties and functions under Section 16. So the important words here are outside Canada. So now we're going to put our intelligence service, giving it more latitude to pursue its objectives outside of Canada. And of course, Section 21 of the Act asks that we also give them the ability to act without regard to any other law. In other words, any other law of another country. So we're asking our intelligence service to open up the opportunity to spy on other countries, to disregard the laws that other countries might have towards their citizens, and pursue our intelligence system in that regard. So we're taking a step more towards a confrontational approach to other nations. And based on one single perceived threat of ISIL or Al-Qaeda or those foreign agencies that we see as being the prime international threat to the stability of the world right now, and so I think we're on a fairly slippery slope here, and this is simply the first piece of legislation that this government is coming forward with. We're going to see some more, coming out with some more. I believe it was introduced today, or it was given some public notice today, and I haven't had the opportunity to review it. But certainly, we're moving in that direction, and that, I think, is something that we have to take very seriously. It's not a simple matter. It's not simply jump on the bandwagon here and let's go. Let's go after increased surveillance abilities of our intelligence service overseas. And then now within Canada, we're going to see our intelligence service being able to do other kinds of actions which would not have been permitted in the past. So what's the threat? Is the threat of that significance that we need to move in that direction? And I would argue that after the larger incident of terrorism that occurred in 1986, we made some changes to our security system, our airport security system. We did some things that helped reduce that threat. Yes, thank you. We didn't really provide that same coordination within the country, perhaps, that was required, and I think we're all in favor of greater coordination between our protective services in this country. But we didn't see at that time the need to take our intelligence service and take it out of the country, give it these types of powers. Yet we've seen incidences that are far less serious than that now are driving us in that direction. Why? Is it simply by politics? And that's a concern that we all have on this side, that we're moving ahead with restrictions of Canadians' rights and privileges based on the political necessity of creating this threat at this point in the Canadian political process. And that, I think, is unfortunate, that we would then choose to change our laws that have been in place for a long time. Are these such that I think in some ways politics is important in terms of our international relationships. When you see the Canadian foreign minister being pelted with eggs and shoes traveling, that's an unusual occurrence in this country. Perhaps we should look at what the politics of what we're doing in this country, rather than simply looking at ways that we can intervene militarily, or we can intervene. But if we've moved away from a Canadian position of enlightened centralism into one that picks sides. And that, I think, is the greatest threat that we have to Canadian security in this day and age. Thank you.